David Buick, financial advisor, joins us as well. Afternoon to you, David. 22 billion quid, did she say, for the NHS? Twice what some people were predicting. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Ian. No, she's certainly done her homework, and I think what surprises me is how well the gilt market seems to have accepted this enormous amount of expenditure and borrowing. It strikes me she went at such a pace. I may have got my figures wrong, but I think she's borrowed something like £20 billion for what they call infrastructure spending. But I mean, she spent an awful lot more than that, which of course will come from the taxpayers. I think if she borrowed more than about 20 billion, which is what I think she's borrowed, I think gilt market yields would have gone up. They actually have come down quite a bit since this morning. Okay. I mean, we've seen the two-year gilt borrowing. I don't want to sound like an anorak, but I think it's quite important. Because of the fear of the market for 6 weeks before, it went up from 3.80% to 4.26%, down to 4.17%. So that shows that the markets seem to have accepted what she's put across. And also we've seen the FTSE down by about 53 points this morning. I don't think an awful lot of that is anything more than perhaps more people taking their profits from capital gains, where incidentally putting her rate up from 20 to 24%, I don't think it's too bad. From what I've seen so far, the ambition is colossal. And if they deliver 50% of it, I think they've done exceptionally well. And what concerned me was that if we might have had a repetition of what happened 2 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago, and it hasn't.
When you say the ambition is colossal, David, is that do you say that kindly or do you say that cynically?
No. I mean, let's be candid. I don't care what anybody's political persuasion is. The public services are a disgrace, and they have been run down very badly. And the only thing I think which is deeply unfair is when we cast our mind back to 2020, COVID cost a fortune. Yeah. I mean, not only in £400 billion, but also in the fact that nobody knew where their jobs were, nobody knew whether there was going to be any tomorrow. And I think whoever had been in government, it was clearly obvious to me they were out at the next general election. Yeah. And the cost of this has been catastrophic. And what I like to see is, I think the way this has been presented, I must say, in terms of wanting something sensibly put together and which will help people if it's carried out, is excellent.
And I mean, there's a lot of people going to say, well, OK, that might be fine overall, but others would argue maybe employers will say, hang on, I've got a hike in national insurance. I've now got to deal with employer national insurance. Landlords might say, I've got an extra increase now on buying a second home, which has potential ramifications. So it's not all good news, if you want to look at it that way.
No, I just say the ambition plans on spending, I think, are very good. I mean, the national insurance contribution for employers, up whatever it is, 1.7%, took my breath away at £25 billion. Yeah. I mean, that is a serious amount of money. And also for smaller companies, though there seems to be some relief if you're only going to have 4 or 5 employees, is very damaging and very, very costly indeed. All right, they've done something with the hospitality sector in sort of cutting their overheads as regards the rates that they have to pay. But that is a serious problem. The other thing, Ian, I think was important to mention is the £70 billion National Wealth Fund, of which obviously some of the money's got to come from government. Is there enough there to impress overseas investors, inward investors, that they've got the kind of environment they want? I think they will attract a certain amount of investment, maybe quite a lot. But I think that we need to see that the actual ambitions as regards the money that they're prepared to invest in it, together with private investment, is sufficient, and I have my doubts.
It's interesting, isn't it? We've been saying throughout, David, that when a budget happens, it isn't just about balancing the books and papering over a few cracks in public services. It is about nailing your flags, your colours to the mast, as it were, saying, look, this is who we are, this is what we're all about, this is what we stand for. Can we extrapolate a sort of definitive economic, fiscal kind of identity to Rachel Reeves and the Labour government now?
I think this is a political budget rather than an economic budget. I mean, people say, well, hang on a minute, that's not fair, because we've enjoyed putting together our fiscal discipline. I think to go to the IMF and to Washington at the time she did was a really smart move, because it's enabled to do what they have. I mean, there's good borrowing and bad borrowing. Good borrowing is for hospitals, railways, all kinds of things that we actually need. Bad borrowing is to give the unions more money. And clearly they wouldn't have been allowed to do that. So she's created a degree of stability. This government has got, whether people like it or not, 176 majority. It's here to stay for 5 years. And I think she's put forward a policy that is possibly, achievable. Again, my concern and worry is always the question of being able to attract investment. And there are certain things in there that are going to make it very difficult for employers, and whether they're going to be able to attract the kind of money they want for the businesses they want remains to be seen. Yeah,
I was going to say, is there anything in there that you would say, wow, this puts us as a very forward-thinking Western economy now? People are going to look at this. The Elon Musks of this world are going to say, I'm not going to launch a rocket from Florida, I'm going to do it in Peterborough, because clearly the UK is the place to be.
Well, I think there's, looking at the various things that she's done, that she's put it just for next year, £1 billion for aerospace. There's also stuff for life sciences, £520 million for life sciences. Obviously the energy area, which is very important, there's 20 billion over the next few years. No, I think she's selected the kind of areas that I think will attract people. It's just a question of whether we've got all the fruits from the tree that are going to attract people to come here and put their money. And I think, this green energy policy slightly worries me, because I think Ed Miliband is trying to run before he can walk. And I think I'll be pushing 6 daisies up for years before it's the end of, petrol or any kind of fossil fuels.
Yeah, we're going to watch with interest. David, it's always great to get your insight and your take on these things. One of the most respected financial contributors. That's David Buick, financial advisor, with us here on the programme.